Good afternoon, everybody. So yes, today I will talk about illuminating complex systems with light states made to measure, which was some work that I did with Allard Mosk at Utrecht University during my postdoc. So I would like to start by thank the full nanophotonic groups and especially Allard, who is leading the research effort on wavefront shaping. And I would like also to thank our external collaborators, so Rémi Carminati from ESPCI Paris and Stefan Rotter from TU Vienne. So this lecture will be divided in four subsections. So first, I will explain what I mean by light state made to measure. Then I will introduce a theoretical tool that we call the Fisher information operator. Then I will show how to use this tool in an experiment to perform precise measurements. And finally, I will talk a bit more about application and in particular explain the case of lensless imaging. So to start with, I'd like to explain what I mean by light state made to measure. And I first want to introduce by showing how coherent light is a great tool for performing precision measurements. So here, for instance, in this example, people are trying to estimate the path length difference between the two arms of the interferometer very precisely in order to detect gravitational waves. And to do so, they use coherent light. Also here, so people are using coherent light in order to estimate the position of a levitated nanoparticle, and this in order to ground it to cool it to the ground state of motion. So here in this example, people are using coherent light in order to characterize a semiconductor nanostructure and in order to detect possible defects in the nanostructures. And here, in this last example, coherent light is used in order to measure the position of protein that have been secreted by a cell here.
Dorian, can you use a laser pointer? In the PowerPoint, you can switch to a laser pointer, then it's more visible.
Yes, but I'm not. I don't have PowerPoint. It's a PDF, so I'm not sure I'm able to show this.
Okay. Sorry.
No problem.
We can see your mouse. So if you use your mouse, it's a bit small, but we can see it.
Yes. Okay, great. So yes, I was showing these four examples, and especially these two last examples are very strong interest to us because the situation is more complicated than here. Like in these two last examples, the medium can be complex. So you can have multiple scattering within the medium, which scrambles light and makes the estimation task more difficult. So for instance, here, in the case of semiconductor nanostructures, you can have multiple layers and a lot of small transistors, and all of this scatters light, scatters light quite strongly. So at the end, you can have like multiple scattering on light, and this can give a simply random aspect to the measured light. And same here, you can have like cells and anything around the proteins, which can also scatter light and make the estimation more difficult. So we were starting by looking at a very canonical case. Let's say we have a scattering medium, which can be anything, and it is characterized by a scalar parameter theta, and this theta we want to estimate. And generally, what one can do is just shine a plane wave into the medium and look at the measure field. And essentially, what we want is the measured field to depend strongly on theta, because if the measured field does not depend on theta, then you have no chance whatsoever to estimate theta. And in general, if you send a plane wave, well, you have no guarantee that this field depends on theta, so you have no guarantee that you will be able to do precise estimations. So here, if we look at the same situation, but then we allow ourselves to shape the input wave, so to spatially modulate the input wavefront with a spatial light modulator, for instance, and then we measure the outgoing field, then we can look at the optimal wave, the optimal way to shape the input wave, so that the measured field maximally depends on theta. So that if you move theta a bit, if you change its value, then the outgoing field changes a lot. And if you're able to do that, then you can hope to perform optimal estimations from these measure fields. So what's the way to find this optimal wavefront? Well, one approach could be to say to focus onto the object of interest. So to focus onto an object which can be located inside the scattering medium, there have been techniques that have been developed, and especially by Allard's group more than 10 years ago. So let's look at how it reads. So if you have a plane wave and you have a scattering medium, then what you measure at the output is here a speckle. So it's simply a random intensity pattern here. But what Allard and his group showed at this time was that you can shape the input field so that it somehow compensates the disorder inside the scattering sample in order to focus at any given point, either inside or in transmission through the scattering sample. So here you see that you have a very strong focus, even though you have a scattering sample in between the incident light and the measurement point. So one can say, okay, if I want to measure very precisely a property of an object, I just have to focus on this object. But this is not a very satisfactory answer, because here you don't only care that your wave interact with the object, but for instance, you also care that the photons are directed toward your eye, toward the observer. And here in this formalism, this is not included. So this is why we would like to have a better measure of information than just focusing onto the object. And this better measure is actually constituted by the Fisher information. So now I will explain what is the Fisher information. And this Fisher information comes in the context of parameter estimation. So when wants to estimate one or several parameters theta from noisy data x. So theta can be a scalar or a vector, and x can be also a scalar or a vector. And in fact, the data are noisy because of field fluctuations, for instance, but also because just of other classical noise source. So at this stage, we don't really care about what kind of source, what kind of noise there is, but we know that there is noise. So here, this data must be a random variable. It must be described by a random variable. And any estimate that we made from this data, so any function that we apply to this data in order to estimate theta, will be also noisy. It will be also a random variable because of the noise. And because of these noise fluctuations, when you estimate theta from this parameter, well, you can have a very large variance in your measurements, in your estimates. Sorry. So then the idea is what can we do to reduce this variance? So one first step could be, okay, I can try to improve the estimator. I can try to improve the function that I'm building to estimate theta from the data. And if you do that, so if you devise a better estimator, so for instance, if you devise a better machine learning algorithm, you can try to reduce the variance, and sometimes it works. But you will never get all the arrow just inside the target. It's not possible because you still have noise fluctuations, right? So even if you have a very good algorithm, because of the noise fluctuations, you have a limit. And this limit is called the Cramer-Rao bound. So this Cramer-Rao bound is expressed mathematically as the inverse of the square root of the Fisher information. So you see that the more information that you have, the smaller this bound is. And this bound is the lower bound on the standard error on the estimated value of your parameter. So you see that the more information you get, the smaller this bound can be. And I'm just showing you here the formal definition of the Fisher information, which is expressed as an average value over the noise fluctuations, and it uses the probability density function. So here it's just to show you that it's a very general formalism which can include any probability density function. So what you need to know to calculate this is what probability density function is used to describe your data, and how it depends on theta. And if you're able to answer these questions, then you can calculate the Fisher information on the Kramer-Rao bound. Okay, so this bound cannot be overpassed by a better estimator, but then what we can do is just acquire better data. So basically change this probability density function and change the way it depends on theta so that it changes the Kramer-Rao bound. And if you're able to reduce the Kramer-Rao bound, then you will be eventually able to have better estimates of your parameter. So now in this talk, I will only consider the last step. So I will assume that we have a good estimator, and this is sometimes true under certain conditions, but I will assume, and I will just consider how to acquire better data, so to get the field to interact more with the object and then to come back to the observer using wavefront shaping. And I also want to introduce you to an example which shows that actually this idea has been here for more than 5 years in the field of fluorescence microscopy. So in this field, you want to localize fluorescent molecules very precisely in the X, Y, and Z direction. So you have a molecule in the sample, and then if you directly image the molecule, this is the image that you have. And here you can see that if you change X or Y, you have somehow a lot of information because your pattern is changing. But if you change the Z coordinate of the molecule, then this pattern very weakly changes because actually all the information is in the phase. And if you only measure the intensity, you don't measure this information. So here, the idea of this team, which is a team of Morner, is to place a phase mask in the Fourier plane here and to optimize this phase mask so that it maximizes the Fisher information for the Z coordinate of the molecule. And if you do this, so if you run this optimization, then you find a final image plane with this point-spread function. So it's distorted, you see, it's not at all the same. But what's interesting here is that it gives a lot of information about the Z position, because if you change Z, then this PSF also very strongly changes, and then you can recover the Z position of the molecule from it. So here, this is some results where the flowed fluorescent molecule inside a tube. So you see here 3 molecules. So you see that X and Y are easily located as a center of mass of this PSF, but also Z can be inferred by the shape of the PSF. So they know how they distort the PSF, so they can recover the Z position of the molecule. So here it was just an example to show that here by shaping the outgoing field for fluorescence imaging in clear media, you can actually optimize for the Fisher information and have better estimates of your parameter of interest. Okay, now I will go to the second part of my talk, which is the theoretical tool, the Fisher information operator. So here, as I introduced you to the beginning, we want to find the optimal input coherent field in order to maximize the Fisher information for one or several parameters of interest. So we started with numerical simulations. So we consider a spatial light modulator here, and coherent light. You shine it onto a sample, and then with the camera you measure the intensity, the transmitted intensity through the sample. And you assume that the noise statistics of the camera are Poissonian. So basically your measurements are short noise emitted. And as a sample, so it's in simulations, right? We generated randomly some disordered media. So here it's point-like dipoles, which scattered the light. So it's randomly generated, and we have a target at the center of this medium, and we want to precisely localize this target. So let's say, for instance, that we want to precisely know the X position of this target. So what we do is we calculate the Fisher information relative to the position of the target when we measure the intensity camera here at the detector. And we run an optimization algorithm. So here it's a brute force optimization with a simulated annealing technique. We run this optimization procedure in order to find the phase that should be applied on the spatial light modulator in order to maximize this objective function, the Fisher information. And when you do that, this is the intensity pattern that you get. So here, again, it's the intensity inside the media, so that if you move a bit your particle, then it creates a speckle that changes a lot in the camera plane. And if you change it, and if you now are interested into the Z position, the Z coordinate of the particle, then you see that this intensity pattern, this optimal pattern changes. So here we reduce the optimization for this Z coordinate, and you see the pattern changes. So it really shows that it's optimizing the Fisher information is not simply focusing onto the particle. There's something else. So in this article, we specifically studied the influence of the disordered surrounding environment onto the localization precision of the particle. So if you're interested in that, you can look at this article. But then in the following of my talk, I will mostly focus on a different and we believe a clearer way to describe these simulations using a scattering matrix formalism. So I will briefly recall what is a scattering matrix formalism. So basically, when you are interested in the measured field at one given position, it can be expressed as a sum of all the incident fields times the coefficient of the scattering matrix. So this approach can be used to describe very simple scattering media, such as a lens, but also very complicated scattering media, such as a sugar cube. And the very interesting about this formalism is that you can experimentally measure this coefficient, this SKM. And once they are measured, then you can predict for any incident field that you like, how the outgoing field would look like. So it's a very convenient formalism. And also what is convenient to us is that if you want to know the derivative of the outgoing field with respect to your parameter of interest, what you need to know is only the derivative of this coefficient with respect to theta. Okay, so now that we have this tool in our head, let's describe the generic situation that I talked at the beginning with this formalism. So we are considering a parameterized object, which is located behind a scattering material. And this whole system, we describe it by the scattering matrix. So the scattering matrix depends on theta, which is the parameter of this parameterized object, and this is a full system. And then we can illuminate this system with a shaped input field, and then we can characterize this output field. So the first question here is, what is the best way to measure the output field? Because if I just place a camera, I have only the intensity, but I dismiss all phase information. And actually, if you do the calculation, what you can show is that the best way to do this, to measure the output field, is to have a camera, but to interfere this output field with the reference field. And the reference field should have a strong intensity and should be shaped, the phase of this field should be shaped according to this condition. And if you have this optimal detection scheme, then what you can show is you can express the Fisher information measured in this data using this very simple form. So it's expressed as a function of the input field and the derivative of the scattering matrix. And the term in the middle is what we call the Fisher information operator. So what is especially nice with this simple form is that once we know this operator, so either we simulate it or we measure it, once we know it, then we just need to do an eigenvalue decomposition of it, and then take the eigenstate with the largest eigenvalue. And this will give us the optimal input field that maximizes the Fisher information for the parameter of interest. So basically here, with this scheme, it shows both how to shape the reference field and the input field to maximize the Fisher information. Okay, so for now, yes, a last point, a last detail is that this formalism is actually connected to different experiments that have already been done. So actually, they were already identifying light states that maximizes the Fisher information, but without actually knowing it. So for instance, if you do time reversal of a perturbation, then you actually converge towards this optimal state. And also another connection which is even more elegant, I believe, is with the generalized Wigner-Smith operator. So this operator is used to maximize the perturbation onto an object. So for instance, if you define it with respect to the rotation of angle of this object, the generalized Wigner-Smith operators allow you to maximize the torque applied on this object using radiation pressure. And actually, what we showed in the article is that it's equivalent to maximize the information about the angle theta and to maximize the perturbation applied on this object. But this is equivalent only if the scattering matrix that you measure is unitary. So that if you're able to measure all outgoing modes and if you have no absorption inside your system. And as a consequence also, we obtain the result that if you want to optimally measure a parameter, then the optimal way to do that is to imprint the parameter variation into the phase of the outgoing waves. Okay, now I will explain how this translates into experiments. So how to use this theoretical formalism in order to perform precise measurements with a limited number of input photons. So here, this is the setup that we built. So we have a coherent light here that we shine into a beam splitter to divide it into the main path and the reference path. And then we can shape the main beam using a spatial light modulator. And we inject it onto a ground glass diffuser, so it's a random medium. We collect the reflected light through the same objective, and we recombine it with the reference beam into the camera. So this is the random medium, and the hidden object that we would like to characterize is displayed by a second SLM. So here we display a cross, which we can change the phase of. So we can modify the phase, and the goal will be to estimate the phase of this displayed object. Okay, and here, if you remember, I told you that the reference beam should also be shaped to optimize the Fisher information. So here we will not do that. We will only use a tilted plane wave in an off-axis holographic configuration. And we can quantify how much we lose by doing this. And we lose only a square root of 2 in the estimation precision, which we think is acceptable here. Okay, so now, in order to identify this optimal incident state, to maximize the Fisher information, what we need to do is first to measure the derivative of the scattering matrix, or here the reflection matrix, with respect to theta. So what we do is we measure one full reflection matrix with more than 2000 modes for theta, for delta phi equal delta phi plus, so for one given phase. Then we measure again the same reflection matrix, but for a different value, a slightly lower value of this parameter. And then we use this finite difference scheme in order to approximate the derivative of the reflection matrix with respect to the phase angle of the cross. And from this, we can calculate this Fisher information operator. And once we have calculated in the computer this operator, we can make an eigenvalue decomposition, identify the maximum eigenvalue, and generate with the spatial light modulator the optimal state by using the associated eigenstate of the operator. Okay, so let's characterize this maximum information states. Let's see how they look like. So it's important to realize that these states, they are tailored with respect to the observer and the observable. So they are really maximizing the information, and naturally, by maximizing the information, they are doing these two things, being tailored with respect to the observer and to the observable. So let's see what I mean by tailored with respect to the observer. So here we run the experiment first by looking at the full field of view of the camera and by trying to estimate delta phi, the phase of the cross. But what we did then is to run the same experiment, but restricting the field of view of the camera. And when we do that, well, the optimal state in this case have an intensity at the position of the observer, which is covering approximately the full field of view. So remember, it's a speckle because we have a diffuser, right? But the intensity is approximately distributed over the field of view. And when you restrict the field of view, you can see that the wave is naturally redirected toward the observer, towards the field of view that we consider in the definition of the Fisher information operator. So it really means that the photons are not only interacting with the object, but also coming back to the observer. And then it's also tailored with respect to the observable. So to show this effect, what we did is now we take the full field of view of the camera, but we change the observable of interest. So instead of looking at the phase of the cross, what we are doing is we are looking at the X position of a circular object. So when we, so we found a way to look at a derived way to approximate the intensity in the object plane. And this is what we obtain for the maximal information state. So it tends to focus in the center of the cross. And when here we optimize for the X position, what we see is that the wave tends to focus, but not in the center of the object, because it does not contain any information about the X position, but rather it tends to focus onto the edge of the object. So it really shows that it adapts really to the parameters that you're trying to estimate. Okay. Now let's see in practice what are the advantages of this wave. To know the advantage of this wave and to really illustrate it, what we did is we strongly reduced the number of input photons down to 25,000 photons in order to be strongly shot noise limited. And then if you do that, all the incident waves that we use to measure the reflection matrix, they do not allow any estimation of the phase of the cross. So this is the distribution of the Kramer-Rao band for all this plane wave, and you see that with the best plane wave that we used, you can have a standard error of 0.7 radians. So it's quite a large error. And in contrast, if you use the same number of input photons, but if you correctly shape it with this maximum information state, so either amplitude or phase and phase only, you see that you can gain a full order of magnitude in the precision that you can achieve in order to measure the cross. So here, this is the theoretical results that have been obtained by the knowledge of the reflection matrix. But now let's verify that this precision can actually be achieved from our data. So what we did is we changes in steps the phase of the cross from minus 0.25 radian to 0.25 radian. And we first send it the best plane wave and measure the reflected field. And from this reflected field, we apply a good estimator and we try to estimate this angle. And for this base plane wave, you can see that the noise is too strong. You cannot see anything. And if you remember, I told you that the Kramer-Rao band was 0.7 for this plane wave. So 0.7 is larger than this difference, which is actually why you don't see anything. And with the base plane wave, as I told you, you gain 1 order of magnitude in the Kramer-Rao band. So basically, you reduce the standard error of these fluctuations by an order of magnitude, which allows you to resolve very clearly the phase steps. Okay, so my last section will be to explain how these results will translate to maybe a more realistic case in which maybe you will have to estimate more than one parameter precisely. And I will be especially talking about the case of lensless imaging. So in a lensless imaging configuration, simplest one, what you have is a coherent source, so you can expand it. And then you have an aperture to restrict spatially your illumination. You have a specimen that scatters radiation, and you have a detector, an intensity detector. And here you see you don't have a lens. And the reason for that is maybe that you're using radiations that are high energy so that you don't have a good lens available. But what you can do is measure several diffraction patterns for maybe different position of the aperture. And from all of these diffraction patterns, you can run an algorithm in order to try to recover the property of the specimen. So here I'm showing some results that have been obtained in the group by Jakob Seifert and Lars Lodgering. And it shows that that here you have a slice of a mouse brain, and you see that using this approach you can recover the image, even though here you need to realize that only diffraction patterns, which looks randoms, have been measured here. So we would like to know, does our formalism could be used to find optimal way to illuminate this sample in such a configuration? And it's a different configuration that we've investigated before, because here you can have several parameters and you measure only diffraction patterns. You are not able to measure the phase of the wave. So we looked at a very simple example in which we sent numerically a laser into a sample constituted of 3 lines, and then we calculate the diffraction pattern associated with this object. So what are the difference between our first experiment with the cross and this experiment? Well, the first difference is, of course, that now you have many parameters. So instead of one parameter, you have a vector parameter constituted of all the position of the lines. The objective function is not just the inverse of the Fisher information, because now it translates, the Fisher information translates into a Fisher information matrix, which is the generalization of the Fisher information for multiple parameter estimation. So you need to construct an objective function with this inverse of the Fisher information matrix. And here we choose its spectral radius. And also, lastly, the optimization methods need to change, because we cannot just simply make an eigendecomposition of a Fisher information operator. But now the problem is more complex. You have more parameters, and we need to run optimizer extracted for the TensorFlow libraries, such as Adam. And with this in mind, we can solve several questions. So we could say, for instance, what are the optimal position of Gaussian beams that I should use in order to minimize the interaction with the sample and maximize the precision that I can have on the estimation of all parameters together. Or another question would be, which faceplate, which zone plate do I need to use in front of my laser in order to make the optimal estimations? So this is this last question that I'm showing here to you. So if you have a plane wave coming out from your laser, you can optimize a transmittive zone plate here just after the laser for the Fisher information, and this is the pattern that the optimizer gives us. This is the resulting intensity in the object plane, so with a difference line. So you see that the algorithm tends to find a structure that focus onto the edge of the line. And this is the associated simulated intensity pattern detected at the camera. So here, what you need to realize is that if you move a bit a line, it will change this intensity pattern in a very distinct way, so that if you move another line, the pattern will change in a different way, so that it will be possible from this pattern to recover all the values from all the parameters. And when we do that, when we find this optimal zone plane, we can see that on average, we have a precision limit which is improved by a factor of 3 for all parameters. Okay, so with this, I would like to conclude this talk. So I talk about optimizing the Fisher information in complex media. So I started with numerical simulations with dipole in a box and trying to localize the central dipole inside the box. Then I explain some theoretical tool on some experimental results that we had for single parameter estimation, so estimating the phase of the cross, of the hidden cross. And finally, I discuss numerical results that we obtain in the context of possible applications in lossless imaging. And as possible perspective, well, we would like to push applications. So for instance, in nanofabrications or biological imaging. And if you want to apply this in biological imaging, especially, we would need to answer the question, what will happen if the medium is time dependent? Because here in this, we only consider the static scattering matrix, but then if the scattering matrix changes in time, it creates an additional difficulty. And with this, I would like to thank you for your attention, and we'll be happy to answer questions.